She cheated with my best friend's brother during our wedding weekend, then stole $200, $0 in inheritance, and now they're suing me for half our house. I never thought betrayal would turn into a legal battle over everything we owned. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where everything I believed about my marriage would come crashing down in such a brutal way, but here I am. It all started during what was supposed to be the happiest weekend of my life, my wedding weekend. I thought I knew Sarah. She was the girl I'd been with for years, the one I trusted with everything. We built a life together, or so I thought. But in the span of a few days, I learned that my wife wasn't just cheating on me. She'd been lying to my face the entire time. It began subtly. At first, I noticed she was acting distant, avoiding eye contact and being overly defensive whenever I brought up plans or things we needed to discuss. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just nervous or stressed. We had friends staying over and everything seemed fine on the surface. But then, I started noticing little things. Her phone would beep constantly at odd hours. She'd hide it quickly when I walked into the room, and her texts suddenly became more secretive. I caught her deleting messages more than once, which struck me as suspicious, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. The real shock hit when I stumbled upon a series of texts on her phone, something I almost never did because I trusted her. One of her messages was from a number I didn't recognize, and it was explicit. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how much they wanted to see each other. My stomach dropped. I confronted her that night and her reaction floored me. She laughed it off, told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She spun some elaborate story about how the guy was just a coworker, that it was innocent, that I was overreacting because I was nervous about the wedding. But I wasn't stupid. I knew what I saw. The texts weren't friendly. They were intimate, full of promises and desire. I could feel my chest tighten with anger and hurt. How could she lie so blatantly? How could she cheat on me during our wedding weekend of all times? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and the worst part was I still loved her. I wanted to believe she'd tell me the truth, but instead she kept spinning her lies, saying I was imagining things, that I was jealous and insecure. That's when I realized she was a master manipulator, and I was just another pawn in her game. Things got even more complicated when I found out she had taken money from my inheritance, $200, that I was supposed to use for our future, for buying a house, for stability. Turns out, she'd been sneaking around behind my back, not only with her lover but also with my finances. She'd been taking cash from the inheritance, claiming she needed it for emergencies. But I later discovered she'd spent it on hotel rooms, gifts, and who knows what else. The betrayal was layered and deep, and I felt like I was losing my mind trying to process it all. And then, the legal battle started. She's now suing me for half the house we bought together, claiming she contributed equally because she worked hard and deserves her share. I never thought a woman I loved and trusted would turn into someone who would betray me so thoroughly, then turn around and fight me over everything. It's like I lost my wife, my trust, and now my home, all at once. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the cracks forming sooner. But the truth is, I was blind because I loved her too much. Now I'm left with a broken heart and a legal mess I never saw coming. After discovering everything, I felt like I was hit by a freight train. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and my mind kept replaying all the signs I ignored. Her late nights, her secretive phone habits, the way she'd get defensive whenever I asked about her whereabouts. It was like I was living in some twisted nightmare where the person I trusted most in the world was secretly stabbing me in the back. The first real confrontation came about a week after I found the texts. I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling, my voice barely holding itself together. I asked her outright if she'd been unfaithful, if she'd been cheating on me during the wedding weekend. Her face contorted with a mixture of anger and contempt. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied, of course. Said she'd never cheated, that I was paranoid, that it was some misunderstanding. She claimed the texts were just flirtation, that she never intended to do anything serious. But I knew better. I had seen the messages. I had seen the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't paying attention, like she was craving something she'd never get from me again. Her explanations only made me angrier. She called me insecure, said I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything over some stupid messages. She even threw in that I was jealous of her happiness, that I was just scared of losing her because I loved her so much. But I wasn't buying it. I saw through her lies, and I knew she was trying to manipulate me into backing down. The thing is, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. What made it worse was how she started to spin her stories. About the money. She claimed she had no idea where the inheritance money went, that she'd never taken a cent without my permission. But I had receipts, bank statements, wire transfers, hotel bills. I was stunned at how easily she lied. She even accused me of being paranoid and controlling, saying I was trying to ruin her reputation. That's the thing. She's a bitchy, manipulative woman who always knew how to twist things in her favor. I could see her playing the victim now, crying and pleading, trying to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't falling for it. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and completely shattered. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But now I wasn't sure who she was. She turned into someone I barely recognized, selfish, deceitful, and willing to burn everything down to get what she wanted. The house, the inheritance, my trust, all of it was slipping away, and I felt helpless. I wanted to lash out, to yell at her, to make her see how much she'd hurt me. But I also knew I had to stay calm, gather evidence, and figure out my next move. The worst part was feeling so alone in all this. Despite being surrounded by friends and family, I felt like I was standing on the edge of an abyss. My mind kept racing, trying to make sense of how she could do this to me, to us. It was like she'd been planning it all along, smiling and pretending everything was perfect while secretly plotting her escape. I kept asking myself, how did I not see it? How did I miss the signs? But the truth is, love can blind you sometimes, and I was blinded by her charm, her smile, her promises. Now I was sitting in a mess that I didn't create alone. She, stolen from me, lied to my face, and now she was trying to take my house, my home. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I started to think about how I was going to fight back, how I'd protect what was mine, and how I'd rebuild my life after this nightmare. But honestly, I was scared. Scared of losing everything, scared of what she might do next, and scared of how much more pain I'd have to endure before I could even begin to heal. After that confrontation, I knew I had to act fast. I started digging into everything I could find: bank statements, emails, text backups, anything that could prove her lies and her betrayal. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. She had been sneaking around with her lover during our wedding weekend, and not just that, she'd been systematically draining my inheritance. I found wire transfers to accounts I didn't even know she had access to, receipts from hotel stays, and even a handwritten note she'd left in her purse that she forgot to hide. It was all there, laid out like a blueprint of her deception. I also learned she'd been telling her friends she was stuck in a marriage she hated, that she was just waiting for the right moment to leave. Her closest friends seemed surprised when I told them what I'd found, but I could see some of them looked uncomfortable, probably because they'd suspected something but didn't want to get involved. That's when I realized how much she'd spun her web of lies, convincing everyone she was innocent or misunderstood. She'd been lying to her family, her friends, even herself. I decided I had enough evidence to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I called her out in our living room, showing her the bank statements, the texts, the hotel receipts. Her face turned white, and for a moment I saw her panic. She tried to deny everything, claiming she had no idea about the money, that she was just trying to survive, that she was confused and overwhelmed. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, like she thought she could just talk her way out of it. She even had the nerve to say she deserved some happiness, that I was holding her back, and that she needed more than just a boring marriage. It was the moment I realized she didn't care about us, she only cared about herself. I felt a mix of disgust and heartbreak. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I'd always been the one who kept us afloat, who worked hard, who tried to give her a good life. and now she was telling me it was all a mistake, that she needed to be free. I couldn't believe how selfish she was, lying and cheating and stealing from me all at once. It was like I was living with a different person, someone I didn't even recognize. The worst part was how she kept trying to gaslight me, to make me doubt my own perceptions. She insisted she never cheated, never took that money, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. She said I was just jealous of her happiness, that I was trying to control her. And all I could think was control her. I'd never tried to control her. My only mistake was trusting her, loving her, and believing in us. And now I was paying the price. The emotional damage hit hard. I felt betrayed beyond words. I'd given her everything, my time, my love, my trust. And she'd thrown it all away for some guy she barely knew, for some money she thought she could get away with. Every time I thought about it, I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach. It was like I'd been played for a fool, and I'd allowed her to do it. How did I not see it coming? How did I miss all the signs? But at the same time, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I had to protect what was mine, my house, my money, my dignity. I started reaching out to a lawyer, figuring out my options. The house, I realized, was now a battleground. She was claiming she contributed equally, even though I knew she hadn't earned her share. She'd only been in it for the money and the thrill of the affair. I was furious, thinking about how she'd been planning this all along, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly scheming to take everything I owned. The legal fight was about to begin, and honestly, I didn't know how long I could hold on. Every day felt like a roller coaster. One minute I was furious, the next I was crushed, then numb, then ready to fight. I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself but for what little dignity I had left. I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved, and now I was fighting to keep what was rightfully mine. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been so blind, but deep down, I knew I'd never trust her again. Not really. And that realization hurt more than anything else. The legal process moved faster than I expected, and I quickly found myself in a war I never signed up for. She filed her papers claiming she contributed equally to the house's value, and that she deserved her half. Of course, she lied through her teeth about her involvement in the inheritance and her contributions, but I had enough evidence to prove otherwise. I hired a lawyer and I started building my case, gathering every document, every email, every piece of proof I could find. The thing is, Sarah is a master at manipulation. She's bitchy, stubborn, and she's not afraid to throw tantrums or lie her way out of anything. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was controlling and paranoid, and that she was just trying to protect herself from my abuses. It was laughable if it weren't so infuriating. She's the one who cheated, stole, and lied, and now she's trying to turn it around, playing the victim to everyone around her. I could see through every word she said, her fake tears, her fake innocence. She's good at it, too. She's a real bitch in that sense. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep my composure, but inside I was boiling with rage. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? I kept replaying everything, her sneaking around with her lover, the money she took, the lies she told to cover her tracks. I had to remind myself that I was fighting for my own sanity, my dignity, and what was left of my pride. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, not without a fight. The worst part was how she kept trying to manipulate the situation, claiming she'd been forced into a corner, that she deserved happiness, and that I was just jealous. She told our mutual friends I was controlling, that I was abusive, trying to turn everyone against me. I knew she was lying. She's good at that after all. She's been doing it for years. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to stay focused, keep my evidence tight, and be ready for whatever she threw at me. I started to feel like I was fighting not just for the house or the money, but for my own reputation. She's a manipulative woman who's used her charm and bitchiness to get what she wants, and now she's trying to turn my life into a courtroom drama. I couldn't let that happen. I had to be the one standing tall, fighting for what's right. Every day I was reminding myself that this isn't just about money or a house, it's about justice. I was the one who worked hard, who paid the bills, who kept everything afloat. She was the one who lied, cheated, and stole. And then came the inheritance issue. I found out she had been secretly withdrawing money from my account $200 gone. She claimed she used it to settle debts, but I had bank statements showing she transferred it to her sister's account, then to her lover's account. It was clear she was planning her escape from the start. I confronted her again, and she spun even more lies. Said she was trying to help her family, that I was accusing her without proof, that I was jealous of her relationship with her sister. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go to deny everything, even when the evidence was staring her in the face. The more I fought, the more I realized how much she's been playing the victim. She's bitchy, manipulative, and she's used every trick in the book to try to win this battle. But I was determined not to let her. I knew I had to stay strong, even if it meant tearing through her lies and exposing her for what she really is. A woman who's betrayed her vows, lied to everyone, and now wants to take everything I worked for. I felt exhausted, drained, but also more resolved than ever. I wasn't going down without a fight. Not over my house, my money, or my reputation. I'd learned the hard way that betrayal doesn't just hurt, it destroys everything you thought was real. And now, I was ready to take it all back. The court dates came faster than I expected, and suddenly I was sitting across from her in a legal room, feeling like I was in some twisted game I didn't even want to play. Sarah sat there looking bitchy as ever, her arms crossed, smirking like she already thought she had won. She had her lawyer whispering in her ear, and I could see the confidence in her eyes. She was used to getting what she wanted, and she believed she could manipulate her way out of this too. But I wasn't about to let her. I laid out all the evidence, bank statements, text messages, hotel receipts, wire transfers. I explained how she'd been sneaking around, stealing from my inheritance and lying to cover her tracks. Her lawyer tried to spin it, claiming I was just jealous, that I was controlling, that it was all just a misunderstanding. But I knew better. I could see her bitchy smirk fade a little when I presented the facts. She realized I wasn't backing down. The hearing was intense. She kept trying to throw me off with her bitchy attitude, throwing in accusations about how I'd been abusive, how I'd controlled her, and how she deserved her fair share. Her lawyer even tried to argue that she contributed equally because she'd kept the house clean, which was a joke. I knew the truth. She'd been living off my money, cheating on me, and lying her ass off. I saw through every word she spat out, but the real bombshell came when I brought up the inheritance theft. I showed the court the bank transfers, the hotel bills, the wire receipts. I explained how she'd been planning her escape for months, draining my account and secretly funneling money to her lover. Her face turned red and she started to stammer, trying to deny everything. Her lawyer tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelming. I could see her bitchy mask cracking just a little. The judge listened patiently, then made a ruling. She awarded me full control of the house, citing that Sarah had clearly lied and stolen from the inheritance. She ordered her to pay back every dollar she'd taken, plus damages for the emotional distress. Sarah looked furious, her bitchy attitude turning into pure contempt. She was trying to argue, to manipulate her way out, but it was too late. The court saw through her. That day, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. I had fought for what was right, and I'd won. But inside, I also felt empty. Betrayal cuts deep, and I knew this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about trust and love, shattered beyond repair. Seeing her bitchy smirk fade, knowing she was going to lose everything she'd tried to steal, gave me a strange sense of satisfaction. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. I'd loved her once, and now I was left with nothing but a bitter taste in my mouth. The aftermath was a mess. She refused to accept the court's decision at first, throwing tantrums and trying to appeal. But I stayed firm. I knew this was just her way of trying to hold on to some illusion of control. I also started to rebuild my life, focusing on my work, my family, and figuring out how to move on from the betrayal. The house was mine again, but I realized I'd never get back the trust I'd lost. She burned that bridge forever. Looking back, I see how naive I was to think I could ever truly trust someone like her. She's manipulative, bitchy, and selfish, everything I should have seen from the start. But I also learned a hard lesson. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it destroys. And sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back, expose the truth, and reclaim what's rightfully yours. I don't regret fighting for my home or my integrity, but I do regret loving her so much in the first place. That pain will stay with me for a long time. In the end, I managed to piece my life back together, but it's not the same as it was before. The house is mine again, and I've got the legal scars to prove I fought for what was rightfully mine. Still, the betrayal left a mark that's hard to erase. I learned the hard way that love can blind you and trust can be shattered in an instant. Sarah's bitchy, manipulative side came out full force, and I saw her for what she really was: selfish, dishonest, and willing to destroy everything we built for her own convenience. Looking back, I realize I was a fool for believing in her innocence for so long. I ignored the signs, dismissed the small red flags, and convinced myself that she loved me. But love doesn't mean blind trust. Sometimes it means seeing the truth even when it hurts. I should have known from the start that her bitchy attitude, her lies, and her manipulations were signs of something rotten underneath. Now I'm trying to move on, rebuild my life, and learn to trust again, carefully this time. The experience taught me that betrayal isn't just about the money or the house. It's about losing your faith in someone you thought loved you. It's a painful lesson, but it's also a necessary one. I want to warn others who might be in the same boat. Don't ignore the signs. Listen to your gut and don't let love blind you to the truth. People can surprise you in the worst ways. Most importantly, I've learned that justice might come slow, but it does come. I fought hard and I won. I took back what was mine, and I refused to let her steal even more of my peace. This has been a brutal ride, but I'm stronger for it. And I know now that, no matter how bitchy, manipulative, or convincing someone seems, the truth always finds a way to surface. Sometimes it costs everything to get there. But in the end, I've realized that reclaiming your integrity and standing up for yourself is the greatest victory of all.